Hello, I'm Pastor Buddy Pennington of Westville Assembly of God in Holmes County, Florida, and welcome to 10 Minutes with James. Today we're going to be reading from James chapter number 4, verses 13 through 16 as we take a look at Lesson 8, Part 4. Allow me to read those verses for you now from the New Living Translation. Look here, you who say today or tomorrow, we are going to a certain town and we'll stay there a year. We will do business there and make a profit. How do you know what your life will be like tomorrow? Your life is like the morning fog. It's here a little while, then it's gone. What you ought to say is, if the Lord wants us to, we will live and do this or that. Otherwise, you are boasting about your own pretentious plans, and all such boasting is evil. In part 4 of Lesson 8, we are taking a look at what James is doing as he turns his attention to those Jewish believers who apparently are business owners. They have a business of some sort, and they're talking about their plans for their business. They're making plans to go to a certain town with the intent of being there for a year. Their intention is to run their business there and to make a profit. He asked them the questions, how do you know what your life will be like tomorrow? You see, he's trying to get them to understand that their lives are not controlled by their own plans. They do not know what tomorrow will bring. Making plans in a business venture is a common practice. Looking at the cost, any possible problems and solutions to those problems, whether or not you're going to have success, what you're going to need to do in order to achieve success, is all part of making a plan for operating a business. The plans are not the problem here. Jesus even taught that we need to count the cost before we try to build something. And keep in mind that God had a plan for sinners to be able to find redemption before he even laid the foundation of the world. The concept of making plans is not what James is approaching here. He is approaching their motives and their intents in their hearts as they make their plans. He's dealing with their hearts again. James reminds the readers of just how brief a life can be. He uses an analogy that deals with the morning fog. Now, I imagine unless we live in a place that has fog every single morning, most of us have seen the early morning fog that comes along. It looks very formidable. It's thick, very thick at times. It slows us down in our driving. But we know and realize that whenever the sun comes out brightly, the morning fog is going to burn away and we'll have clear vision again. The length of time that it takes for a life to be lived is very, very short in comparison to all of eternity. James is trying to point out to them that they need to consider the brevity of their lives as they are making plans. His analogy points the readers to how they think about their plans. In other words, their intentions, their motives. He reminds them that they should be saying, if the Lord wants us to, if the Lord wills, then we are going to do this or do that. In other words, it's up to God's will if we fulfill our plans. It is not our decision that brings about the finality of whether or not our plans are fulfilled. That is God's decision. God is the one who orders our steps. God is the one who decides whether or not what we intend to do is going to be fulfilled. That choice is not ours. It lies in the hands of God. Now, James gets down to the nitty-gritty of this part of the verses that he's writing to these people when he gets to verse 16 in chapter 4. Now, if we make plans without considering God's sovereignty over our lives, then we are making what James calls pretentious plans. Something that is pretentious is something that is done in order to impress others by being showy or being boastful. Now, the King James Version of this verse reads like this: "But now ye rejoice in your boastings, all such rejoicing is evil." James is warning those Jewish businessmen that having the incorrect attitudes about their future and about the plans they make, failing to recognize God's influence in our lives, failing to recognize His sovereignty, is being evil in our intentions. It is sinful to rely only on man's abilities and not to take into consideration God's sovereignty over our lives. You see, relying only on man's ability is sinful. We can learn from this warning, and we need to apply this warning to our own lives. May we monitor our motives as we make our plans for the future, just as he is warning these Jewish businessmen to monitor their motives. May we not be guilty of making pretentious plans, as James would say, that are designed to impress people, to be showy and boastful. If we cannot yield to God's will for our lives, then folks, we are committing sin. We are actually being disobedient to the will of God. May God help us not to be disobedient, but to yield and to say in our lives, if the Lord wills, we will accomplish something. It's my prayer that these lessons on the book of James are a blessing to you. If they are, allow me to encourage you to like them and to share them on your own Facebook feed. I would encourage you also to take a look at my YouTube channel where these lessons are posted. It's under my name, Buddy Pennington. You can find all of the lessons that we've had about James listed there on my channel. May God richly bless you is my prayer. I hope to see you in the comments. Have a great day.